So I need to get to the starter ring gear. And to get to the starter ring gear, you've got to split this thing in half. So that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to take that hood off, we're going to get all the steering arms and everything disconnected, and then we're going to split this machine in half. Same as pretty much any other major surgery that you're going to perform on these machines, you're going to want to get the electrical down first. So disconnect that battery, get it out of there, just so you don't have anything bouncing around that's a hot wire, cause you a problem at some point. I have a coil conversion done on this machine, so what I'm fiddling with right there is, it's an automotive coil, and it's actually buried on the inside of the fender there. So getting all the wiring for that disconnected, so when the hood comes up and off, I'm not trying to tear my coil out of there. You're going to do the same thing with your air intake there. That attaches the hood to your filter, your oil bath filter, so get that little black piece of stamped metal out of there so you can get the hood off without too much trouble. Since the gas tank is part of the hood, you're going to want to get that fuel line cracked and get that tank as empty as you can get it. It's going to cut down on weight on the hood when you're trying to move it around. You're also going to find that as you're lifting it and moving it, you don't have fuel sloshing around, changing how it balances, because it's a bit of an awkward thing to move. In the lower front corners of the hoods, you've got one bolt on each side, and that's basically what holds up the hood in the front. So you're going to want to get in there and get those two bolts broken out. And then once they're free, the hood's pretty close to free, but it's a bit of a finagling to get it off.
The tank is part of it.
Is it empty?
Yes, it's empty.
On the what?
The footrest over there. This guy can move in there too.
There we go.
That was half. Theory. Let's try that again. I hate these hoods. Because this one's. There we go.
Alright, now could you like rest it up here so I can get in front of it?
Yeah. Okay.
Are you good? Or not? Alright, I'm glad I could help.
I wouldn't have been able to get that free by myself.
Watch the battery.
From here, now that your hood's off, you're basically just going to start disconnecting everything that's going to prevent you from splitting the tractor in half.
That was it, because now it's going to get split right here, so I can take this battery pan out. I have to take this off. These get disconnected, these get disconnected, and then I can split that housing and then roll this away.
The next step from here is you're going to take off your intake tube from your air filter down to your carburetor. After that, the battery pan, battery tray, whatever you want to call it, the oil bath air filter is attached to that. So if you can get that battery tray out, the air filter goes with it. As far as the disassembly goes, I've basically just used a whole simple wrench set and a couple screwdrivers and whatnot. There's really not that many complicated tools needed when you're working on a machine like this, so you don't have to worry about getting yourself a real big, real complicated toolkit. It's a very basic machine, so it requires very basic tools. At this point, that battery tray would come out, but there is a oil pressure line that runs up to the dash. It plugs into the oil pressure gauge, so disconnecting that and standing that upright will allow you to get the battery tray out of there, and it's going to start to open up that bell housing, all the bolt assembly that runs in there, so you can separate the motor from the transmission. Starter's the next step, and if you've never taken one of these apart before, just be fairly careful when you're unbolting it. The bolts are actually run from the back end of the starter all the way through to the block. That's, if you have an older starter, they can actually kind of come apart on you, so keep a good hold on them when you pull them out and make sure that nothing separates on you. All that weeping you're seeing there, I'm scrubbing around one of the freeze plugs of the block. There is a little bit of coolant weeping out of that freeze plug. That'll be a video for a later date. That was kind of an interesting discovery as I started taking that freeze plug apart. I made some cribbing, and the wedges that I'm putting in here are going to be to support the transmission in the back half of the tractor as I roll the front end away. You want to get it just supported enough so that it's going to stay put, but you don't want to put the wedges in so far that you're actually raising the tractor up a little, because then things don't come together just right if you try to put a little too much of that wedge underneath the tractor. I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to borrow an engine hoist from my brother. He's got one that he could spare for a little while. That was relatively convenient because I didn't want to have to run out and buy one, so thank you, Chad, for that. I appreciate it. I had some of these straps laying around, and I used a configuration of them to get the whole thing suspended. When I can, I like to use the nylon straps like that. They don't dig into stuff the way chain does, or you can adjust them a little easier. But trying to keep the strap support as far back on the engine as possible, but not so close that it could slip off while I'm trying to move it around. So. These wedges are going to go between the axle and the front bolster of this tractor, and that's going to keep the engine from basically flopping left to right as you pull it away from the transmission. So you're going to put one on each side, drive it in there to firm it up so that the engine stays upright as you roll it away. At this point, thought I had it ready to go, and it shouldn't take more than that to get it apart, but there is one bolt in the bottom that I'm about to notice and get them out of there. But as soon as it frees up and you go to take it apart, you shouldn't have to exert a tremendous amount of force on it to get it apart. Just a little suggestion. And that's what you're going to want to see when you separate that machine and things just kind of gently glide apart. That's what you're going to be looking for, because you don't want to see height differences between your motor and trans as you take it apart, because then you're just never going to be able to fit it back together without forcing it. And you do not want to force these things back together. And that's the magic. That's basically all you got to do to get it apart. As soon as you get that motor as far away as you want to get it away, get yourself an engine jack or something underneath it so that it's supported well on the back end, because you don't want to trust that jack to not drift or do something silly that'll cause you problems.
Oh, that's a crunchy bearing.
So that starter gear on the outside of that flywheel, that actually is, that's going to come off the flywheel. I'll kind of clean that up a little bit and put that all back together, but there's my problem right there, is all those missing teeth on that starter gear, that ring gear. So that'll about wrap us up. That gives you a rough idea how to split the machine in half, and that's the problems I'll be chasing in the next video, is getting that flywheel out and getting that ring gear off that flywheel. This end of the housing here, there's an awful lot of old starter gear chunks down in there, and then that bearing there's a little crunchy. That'll get changed out too. So thanks for watching, and appreciate you spending some time watching this video. Have a good one.